Well, here we are, Ian. At last, mate, we've managed to find some time in our diaries to get together. I've driven up all the way from Devon to come and see you up in Aylesbury. Aylesbury?
It is, yeah.
Aylesbury, yeah.
It's still Aylesbury here, yeah.
Yeah, so here we are in Ian's kitchen. And you know what? I really wanted to talk to Ian about the Hyrox and the Macmillan and what drives you, mate. I mean, obviously, it's very close to my heart at the moment. My dad passed away from cancer in February. So it intrigues me. What's it take to do that? I mean, I've been following you for a while now with your chin-ups and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. So I suppose you need to take a few steps back before Hyrox. I've always been like a really active person. Generally, like I think the ADHD is probably a contributing factor to that. Like I've always been a bit bouncy and always wanted to move around, but for a long time I wasn't particularly healthy.
No.
I drank too much, I smoked,
As we would have.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, sort of my mid-20s, I just wasn't in a good place.
No.
But sort of as I went into my 30s and I started to, really sort my life out and work out what I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, fitness became a huge part of my life. And then after my son was born, so I was about 36 when Leo was born, I really started to get myself together because I was just like...
That's like a seismic shift, though, isn't it? When your son's born, suddenly it becomes real.
You're in a different lifetime yourself,
yeah.
Right? When you become a parent. And, I looked at Leo and he's like mega active. He's always on the go, right?
That's
trying to keep up with him is something special. But I looked at, my dad, who's, in his mid-70s now, he's not super mobile, and I thought, he struggles to pick up my son, he struggles to play with him, and I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to make sure that I can always move around and be with Leo, and if he has kids, I can be a granddad that can...
And push that bike without dying on
exactly,
the side.
Right, pick them up, right, carry them. So, my wife, Girl, is a fitness coach, so she sort of really got me into weightlifting properly. Not just weightlifting for ego, can I pick up something heavy, but properly weightlifting for strength training, which I think became that was a big shift for me because it's not just about being active; it's about training your whole body, your core.
And I think that's the misleading bit, isn't it? Lots of bodybuilders think big is better, and actually you can be just as strong and really trim if you train your whole core and everything properly.
Yeah, there's a massive difference between sort of like hypertrophy, building lots of muscle, right, and strength training and conditioning, which is more what I do. And so I was training at my wife's gym, and when she used to be employed at a little studio around the corner, and the owner of that gym was keen on doing Hyrox, and she wrote me into it. She just said, "Oh, do you fancy this?" And I was like, didn't really look at it, and I said, "Yeah, sure." And this was 2 years ago. And then I realised what I got myself
Did you regret it at that point?
I questioned my life choices for a moment, I have to say, right? Because I didn't realise how tough it was going to be. But it was a super interesting challenge. And the thing is, right, for me, like, I like to do big challenges, but I would never do something like a marathon because I just get bored. Right? I don't think I can run for 4 hours.
But that's part of the makeup, isn't it, with ADHD, that once you're bored, you're bored.
Exactly.
It's done with. It's forgotten.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll run maybe 10k, and then after that, I'm just like, no, it's not like my body's giving out, it's just my brain's like, no, pass me, do something else.
Yeah. And
Hyrox is really interesting because you've got these 8 different stations, which are all really challenging, but all really different. And then before each station, you have to do a 1 kilometre run. So you run for a K.
Burn yourself out.
Yeah, knack yourself out. And the trick is, working out how fast you're going to run the 1 kilometre, and how hard you're going to push on the stations. And, the first time I did it, it was like a baptism of fire. And the second station is the heavy sled push. And you think,
yeah, because that was really heavy, so wasn't it? Was that 150 or something?
155, 155 kilos.
I mean, that's a lot of weight to push, because it's a dead sled, isn't it? But there's no wheels. I mean,
there's no wheels, you're just like sliding it on, it's a sled, it's on a carpet, which is quite high resistance, so it's...
that's a lot of weight to push, isn't it?
It is, yeah, because I'm like 60 kilos, so it's 2.5 times my body weight, so...
So somebody like me, I can sort of lean on it and just go.
It's like inertia, right? But I mean, it's doable, right?
Yeah, it's doable.
And you get it moving, and but it becomes about strategy. You sit there and you think, I could just, because you've got to push it 50 meters, right? And it's usually the tracks kind of depends on where the Hyrox is, what state, what venue they're doing it in, but usually it's 12.5 meters, so you've got to do it 4 times.
Right. Okay.
And you could just blast it out, but then your legs are jelly, and you've still got like 6 more kilometers to run and 6 more stations to do
so
after
you've
that.
got to take
right?
it
So
sensible, isn't it?
yeah, so you have to put your ego aside and stop.
Yeah, because when you're post,
let the lactic acid.
You actually said, didn't you, my legs are gone the following day.
Yeah, they were toast. Yeah. But so the second time I did it, or the one I just did recently that you kindly donated to my charity for, that one was a bit different. So we did the relay race that time. So there's 4 of us, and instead of doing the whole thing, you do 2 stations each.
Yeah.
So so I did the sled push again, and I did the burpee broad jumps, which is mean, very mean. But so that's 80 meters burpee to broad jump.
Really?
Yeah, that's tough.
Oh, that's a killer.
Yeah, that's.
And what did you want for that?
I just got left with what everybody else didn't want.
Back to that life choices, wasn't it?
Exactly. Stupidly, I said to the other 3, just pick what you want and leave me what you don't, right? And
yeah, that's that ego, mate.
It is. It is. But I was the only one who'd done Hyrox before, so
yeah,
it was fair. It was fair, but no, it's when you do those just 2 stations and 2 runs, you can push yourself a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For me, part of it's a challenge. Like,
yeah.
Can you do better? Can you really push yourself and keep digging deep to see what's inside? And part of it's just fun. Right?
I think there's also a bit of a life thing, isn't it? You're choosing that in your life to keep you focused.
Yeah.
For me, I walk the mountains, and I have to have that, otherwise I lose focus really easy.
Yeah.
So our booking, I don't know. So we just did Toubkal in Morocco in February, and that's in between the last mountain and the Himalayas in October. If I didn't have that, I'll go right off the rails. I'll just be off sideways, bored, doing something stupid. So the lifestyle choice is there, but it's pretty brutal, mate. My friend Mark Van Hartway, do you know Mark from Devon?
No.
His wife's just done Hyrox in Devon, and I was looking at the pictures, and I was thinking, oh my God, it is brutal.
Yeah.
So that's what you've been doing. Why Macmillan? Because you do a lot of stuff. I've seen you do a lot of stuff around cancer and all those sort of things.
So I think it's one of those things that really it affects everybody. I mean, often we find ourselves choosing charities that are really close to us individually, right, as people, and I think something like Macmillan, they do so much good for so many people. Because pretty much everybody gets affected by cancer at some point in their life, whether it's themselves as an individual or whether it's just loved ones that they see being affected by it. But I think you make a choice, right? Do you support the niche charities that find it hard to gain their support? Do you support the bigger charities that are really struggling because they have so many people to support? And this time I opted for the bigger charity that's supporting more people, because I just think I mean you and I talked recently, and I know that you've been affected.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? It's funny, as you get older, I hadn't been affected by cancer at all until about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Now everyone I know has somebody who's got cancer.
Yeah.
And my business partner Bridget and I have been on the same journey. So we've been business partners for decades. Her mum and my dad both got cancer at the same time. Both passed away within 3 months of each other. Yeah. So we went to her funeral yesterday. Bless her heart. And it is such a hard thing, because it doesn't make any sense, does it? That loved one can be fully functioning mentally, and something so brutal is just going to take them from you.
Exactly. And that's the thing, a good friend of my wife, her husband's just been diagnosed with cancer as well, and it's sort of completely out of the blue, right? And I just think it is one of those things that it looms for so many families. So.
And I think there's something in that, isn't it? Because sometimes we're all guilty of putting that little itch off.
Yeah.
Something not quite right with us. Oh, do you know what? It'll go away.
Yeah.
I think the key is just go and check, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you've got a lump, bump, or a pain, just go and check and make sure.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something I've got, trying to get better at myself as well, because I'm in my mid 40s and I think, I'm in good shape. I'm in my 40s, I'm very healthy and fit, thankfully, touch wood, right? I'm lucky, but also, when you do get something, there's this tendency to go, it's nothing.
It'll be right next week. And the trouble is, you lose track of how long it's been there for, don't you? Weeks turn into months, and before the doctor's saying, "Well, when did it turn up?" "Oh, a few days ago," and actually it's been there for 2 or 3 months. It's easy to forget, isn't it?
Yeah.
And move on from that. But also, when I've been following you, because I'm a bit of a stalker, it seems. You also do quite a lot of videos about dementia, don't you?
Yeah.
So what is it with dementia for you then? Because for those who don't know Ian also works for Orion on a single care record, so it's obviously very close to your heart, isn't it? All this. But you do some really sensible videos about dementia. So
yeah, dementia, frailty, things like that. So dementia per se, right? One of my grandfathers really suffered with it terribly at the end of his life, and it was a long, slow few years.
It's like a double loss, isn't it, with dementia?
And it was. It was the most heartbreaking thing, because I lost both my grandfathers. Both of them, bless them, made it into their 90s, and they were fantastic. Wow. They had wonderful lives, and they were amazing, bombastic people in their own way, in different ways. One of them, my mum's dad, he sort of went with heart failure, so he was, pretty much normal up until the last kind of 12 months. And then it was quite a rapid deterioration.
Yeah.
But he was himself all the way through. But my dad's dad had dementia, and it was a really long, slow, painful loss, because you just watched him over months and years losing parts of himself.
Yeah.
The most heartbreaking thing for me, the worst moment ever, was when I went to visit him with my dad. And it was the first time that he didn't recognise my dad.
Yeah.
And seeing how that affected my dad, like watching him take that pain.
Yeah, it's just it's just this double loss, isn't it? Because you lose them twice.
Yeah.
And it's just horrendous, isn't it, to watch?
It is, and it's really, really, it's. I can't get my head around people having to go through that pain, and I think. Anything to do with frailty, I think deserves more awareness and more focus. Dementia is infinitely more challenging, but
I think frailty in itself, like you say, you can have tools for frailty to help, can't you? But when it's your mind, it's really tricky. There's no options really. You just gotta wait it out and see what happens.
Exactly, and I think obviously we need more research and more effort put into working out why some people deteriorate with dementia whereas others don't. What can be done to stave it off. I try and keep my mind busy. It's to your point about having to have those other focuses, right? To have multiple interests for your mind to follow, instead of just maybe one narrow interest that might be your life's purpose, but it's just one thing that you do, I think is incredibly important to just broaden your horizons.
Absolutely. I mean, the trouble is, you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and if that goes, there's nothing left for you, is there? And we talk about mental health a lot, and I think it's very damaging, isn't it, to only have it all in one place? Because also there's some paranoia about that, isn't it? You become so passionate about it, if it goes, your whole sense of purpose is gone with it.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous, really.
You start to get into the question of identity at that point, don't you? Like, what is your identity? What are you as a human? And I think it's really dangerous to pin your identity onto external factors like your job.
Yeah.
Because, as you say, right, if something happens and you lose that job or you have to stop doing that, you lose yourself as a person.
It's really tricky not to do that, isn't it? I mean, I hope we're all a bit guilty of that sometimes, aren't we? When we first came, we were talking about that, and we were sort of saying, you're almost so proud of your work, you want to do more of it, and you get your sort of ego boost from that, don't you? Because people saying, hey, you're doing a good job, and when you're feeling flat, you can go to work and you're going to get that response. Yeah. And it is quite a dangerous place to be. It is.
And I think, again, it kind of comes back to like, I guess, why I do the things that I do, like Hyrox and things like that. It's because, I want my identity to be internal, not external. I want to push myself to make the choices that I make and to to do what I want to do, and even when it comes down to my identity as a father, I can't pin my identity on my son, because you don't know what's going to happen, and
But people try to do that often, don't they? They want their children to do what they didn't do. I want to be a pro football player. So
have that vicarious life through your children, and that's really dangerous, I think.
Well, it's detrimental to the child, isn't it?
Because you push them down a route that's, your route not travelled.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And they might like it, they might hate it, and then they begrudge you for it.
Yeah.
So it's a dodgy situation, really. Well, look, it was just a quick chat about you and Hyrox and your passions around frailty and dementia and Macmillan. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Good to see
Always
you.
a pleasure.